My name is Misha. I'm just a woman who got really sick, got a lot better. I have something on my chin. And so I'm sharing the knowledge that I've gained as I've gotten better with all of you guys, because if you're anything like me, you've been suffering with symptoms, disorders, all of the stuff listed above. You go to the doctor and you're just not getting answers. And so we're hoping to give some answers and hoping to help people start to take control of their health, figure out what's really going on so you're not ending up on all these medications and sick and tired for the rest of your life. So as you jump in, welcome. I really enjoy when all of you guys hop in and ask questions. Every day I go over something a little bit different. Now, I want to clarify, I am not, again, a doctor or a nutritionist, any of that. I found that getting my insulin resistance under control helped my entire health in a number of ways. That's what we talk about. So everything I talk about is in relation to insulin resistance. If you have questions about other things, I'm not the person. I'm just sharing the knowledge I've gained in understanding that insulin resistance really is linked to almost every disease and disorder that we have today. And if we can control that, we can actually have healthy lives again. And when I'm talking healthy lives, I'm talking about depression and anxiety and joint pain and ADHD and all of this stuff that goes on. So yesterday, people were kept commenting about PCOS. So I wanted to go over PCOS, but it's not just PCOS. We're going to talk about erectile dysfunction this morning as well. So I want to go over what PCOS is, why it's happening. Some of you guys don't even know what that acronym is. So it's polycystic ovarian syndrome. So when a woman starts to have problems and she's gaining weight, her testosterone levels are high, more facial hair, more body hair, but the hair on her head is starting to fall out. Anxiety, depression, mood problems, weight that just won't go away, acne, and then more importantly, painful and irregular periods and the inability to conceive or have children. So if you know a young woman who's having, or any woman who's having problems with their period, and it's not happening in this nice 4-week cycle, and it's erratic and it's painful for her, maybe share this out with her. You guys, this live will be on YouTube and Facebook, housed permanently when we're done. We're going live simultaneously. So if you know someone and they're not here this morning and you want them to get the information, send them there. But welcome in, everybody. I encourage communication, questions. I'm going to go over a lot, so it'll start making sense, and you can start asking questions. I always start with what is insulin resistance, because it's important to know what that is so you can understand why it's related to all of these other things. Now, metabolic scientists and science in general is just starting to say that insulin resistance is linked to almost every disease and disorder we have today, almost every disease and disorder we have today that's lifestyle related. And what's happening in our lifestyle is our food has been changed. The way we eat has changed. We used to eat, a little bit for flavor, but a lot for survival, right? We don't do that anymore. We're eating all the time. We're snacking. We're eating every 2 hours. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into why insulin and why this constant eating and this food that's been so modified is causing a problem called insulin resistance. So when we eat, our food turns into an energy source. And the biggest energy source we have in the body is glucose, so blood sugar. And even your meats and proteins turn into glucose a little bit. So there's some protein factor to it, but there's some glucose factor even from your meats and proteins. So glucose is what's giving us energy, right? But that glucose has got to get to the cells. And what the transport for that energy is your insulin. So insulin is a messenger carrying those packages to the cells. A lot of people ask about thyroid. Thyroid is the regulator. It tells the energy how and when to get used. But when insulin is off, that's off. We're going to talk about how when insulin is off, it links to PCOS. Stay on track, Nisha. So when we're eating food all the time and we're spiking our blood glucose and we're telling our body we have all this energy, our body sends signals to the pancreas, an organ that produces this hormone called insulin. Now insulin comes out, and being the good carrier that it is, it grabs those packages of glucose and starts delivering them. And when I say every cell, I mean every cell. Your brain needs it, your gut needs it, your ears need it, your eyes need it, your ovaries need it, your testicles need it, your breast tissues, your arms, your fingers, everything needs that glucose. And insulin is a growth factor. It's a growth hormone. It wants things to grow. So it's taking this energy out and it's protecting this, saying we need to grow. We're going to link that into the reproductive system here in a minute. But when we have insulin constantly in our bloodstream, so it's out all the time, it's causing constant growth. So we start to put on fat. We start to have excess weight. So is it the PCOS that caused that, or is it this insulin? And we're going to dive in. But when we become resistant to insulin, it's because there's so much of it in our bloodstream that our cells start to be like, nope, I don't want it. But I always say there are some cells that are like drama queens, and they'll take up too much of that. So it's not just that the body won't use it. The body is overindulging in it in some places because there's excess, because the rest of the cells are like, no, I already have enough. I don't need any more. And their doors are shut. Sometimes I say, like, if you imagine living in an apartment building and the little old lady next door comes over and she wants to bring you some cookies and she wants to chat. She does that every once in a while. You're going to open the door and be like, hey, it's good to see you. Come on in and let's have a chat. But if it's a gang of college kids running around, knocking on the doors, doorbell ditching, and maybe it's 13-year-olds, who knows, but they're constantly knocking on your door and disrupting your day for no good reason, you're going to start you're going to not open the doors anymore. And that's kind of how our cells feel. They're inundated by insulin in our system all the time. And what's causing the insulin spike is the constant sugar in our system. So we need to get that sugar down. And we're going to talk about that at the end of this as well. But once that starts to happen, here's what's happening for PCOS. You guys ready? And please ask questions along the way. So let's first talk about how a woman's cycle works, and then we're going to talk about how PCOS is insulin resistance is affecting that. So a woman has your ovaries, right? So your ovaries are what produce your eggs for your fertility. In the beginning of your cycle, your estrogen levels are really low. At that point, your hypothalamus, a little center in the brain, is sending a signal to your pituitary, and that's telling your body to put out something called FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. That is telling your ovaries, that little messenger hormone is going down and telling your ovaries, hey, we got a job to do. Put out some eggs, some little follicles. Those are going to start to grow. Over time, they start to grow. What happens is, because everything is a competition, one egg is like just battling, and it's like, I'm going to get there first, and it matures and it becomes viable, and the rest of the eggs are still kind of battling along trying to grow. When that one egg is viable and the rest of the eggs are starting to grow, they're sending out estrogen from the body. Your estrogen levels are rising. When the brain senses, the hypothalamus senses that rise in estrogen, because eggs are becoming viable, or one egg is becoming viable, now it's sending a message to the pituitary, and the pituitary says, okay, it's time. And so now it produces something called luteinizing hormone. That hormone goes down to the ovaries. That tells that one viable egg, get out of here. It pushes it out of the ovaries. That's ovulation. Now you've ovulated, you have an egg out that's ready for fertilization, that's ready to make a baby, and the rest of the eggs aren't that strong. So the luteinizing hormone acts differently with those. It's like, okay, this egg out, the rest of you guys, you're not worthy. You're going to go away. And it starts to dissipate, degrade those eggs, and they start to leave the ovaries. Their growth cycle stops. They're starting to die off, and they're kind of being eaten up by the body, and they go away. Now, that's a normal cycle. That happens about every 4 weeks. Estrogen is low at the beginning of the cycle. It starts to go up about mid-cycle. At the end of the cycle, it starts to drop again. So you have this rise and fall of estrogen throughout the month. So estrogen is key, right? Well, so what's happening with insulin resistance is this. Insulin resistance is causing a problem with something called aromatase. And aromatase takes testosterone and converts it into estrogen. So now, and we need to understand that this goes for both men and women. This is going to be important. All of your sex hormones begin out as androgens, or things like testosterone, and get converted into the estrogens, estrogen, progesterone. When your insulin is high and this other little chemical called aromatase is out, it doesn't allow the conversion of testosterone to estrogen. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a woman who loves research and getting answers to people. I want to be clear, I'm not a doctor. So if the testosterone can't convert estrogen mid-cycle, when the eggs should be saying, okay, we're increasing estrogen in the ovaries, it's not happening enough for the brain to get that signal to send out the luteinizing hormone. We're going to stop a second. PCOS means polycystic ovarian syndrome. Lots of cysts in the ovaries, and those cysts can cause infection, and they can cause the ovaries to grow to many times their normal size, and it's very painful. So in the absence of that estrogen being converted from testosterone, there's no signal going to the brain to say, hey, luteinizing hormone, come out. So these eggs that really aren't strong enough are starting to grow. The one egg that is strong enough really isn't getting pushed out. Now what happens, instead of those eggs dissipating, they're getting grown and sick, and they fall and they cause infection in the ovaries. Your ovaries are infected with all of these eggs that are dead and dying because they weren't allowed to be dissipated, because luteinizing hormone didn't get put out, because estrogen didn't go up, because it was blocked from being created by testosterone, which happens when insulin resistance is causing a problem with the signal called aromatase. It's a lot of information, right? But that's how PCOS is happening. Is there a genetic factor that makes you more likely to have it than others? Yeah, there is. But is it the genetics alone that's causing the PCOS? No, there's a switch that gets turned on, and that switch is insulin resistance. That's why insulin resistance is always one of the symptoms. If you look at PCOS, one of the symptoms is insulin resistance. However, the insulin resistance comes first and then causes all of this disruption. So now you have excess hair on your face, your hair is falling out on your head, you're having mood swings, you're having anxiety and depression, you're having weight gain that you can't get rid of. More importantly, you're having these really crazy, you don't know when to time them, when they're going to come or when they're going to go away, and painful periods, and you have a lot of pelvic pain. So insulin resistance is the switch that turns on this whole action of PCOS. PCOS is not causing insulin resistance. It's that message from the body having to do with all of this stuff that is causing the PCOS. Now, there's also a link to how I have all these words in my head. Insulin resistance is causing a problem with the hypothalamus. So even though the estrogen isn't going up, another factor is that luteinizing hormone cue, insulin resistance is kind of blocking that as well. So now again, you have eggs that are growing until they're just, if we look at something in the fridge that you have in the fridge and it's there for too long, it's going to start to get degraded and moldy, right? That's kind of what's happening in essence with your ovaries and the eggs there. So now all of those eggs that didn't get to go away, you don't have the ovulation, so you're not having the one egg that can be fertilized, so you're having fertility problems. The rest of them are sinking into the ovaries. It's causing pain and multiple cysts, and your ovaries are swelling up with all this inflammation and pain. And it all started with the food we eat. It started with us eating every 2 hours. It makes me crazy, but I can't go educate everyone, and especially not people who don't want to hear. But eating every 2 hours, you listen to these health people say, oh, eat every 2 hours, it's going to help your metabolism. No, it doesn't. I was just listening to Dr. Jason Fung This morning, again, talking about how damaging that eat every 2 hours model has been to our metabolism, and has been a big reason why we're ending up where we are. So it's not just the food, it's these ideals that you're given. We do need to do some fasting. We're going to go over some cues. And yes, ladies, you can fast too. And if you want more information on how to fast and when to fast, check out Dr. Mindy Pels. She does a great job teaching fasting for women and our hormonal cycles. I'm not the one. She would be. I utilize fasting though as well. We're going to talk about it. Let me make sure I got these questions, because some you guys ask questions. I want to answer them. So it's not causing necessarily estrogen dominance for women. Let's talk about how that happens for men. Because for women, it's impeding your ability to produce enough estrogen. But there's another factor that happens along the way, right? And we're going to talk about that for men. Insulin resistant woman here. Will ridding my body of sugar fix it, or how do I fix the problem? So I'm going to give you guys a solution. Sorry, got crusties all over my face today. I want to give you guys some ways to fix it. Let's finish talking about this stuff, then I'm going to come back and answer questions. But getting processed sugars and packaged foods out of your life is always a good idea, right? That's just a basic. We all know it. We don't want to hear it, but we all know it. So yeah, doing that and eating more whole foods, whether it be, my son and I were talking, we're Native American. Our bodies love like red meat, and he loves like steak and, from elk and deer and whatnot, and he thrives on that. He does way better with that. So listen to your body and your genetics, but eat more whole foods, whether it's your broccoli and kale and apples and oranges, and I love pears and raspberries and cranberries, but eat whole foods and try to not have as much packaged foods. That's going to be a start. We're going to go over all that in a minute. Yeah. So Apple user, if you have PCOS, even if your cycles are normal, but you can't conceive and you have signs of insulin resistance, I'm going to tell you this. I want to tell you, and I need to go back and find their pictures, but I have a couple of young ladies. One was so insulin resistant and PCOS, and she was just newly married and wanted a family. Her doctor was telling her she was going to have a really hard time conceiving, to not really count on having a family. Look, that was me. Okay. I wanted children so bad when I was younger. I loved kids, still do. You guys will see that throughout my lives. I love kids. I wanted them so bad, but the doctors were telling me I couldn't. I was in the doctors every 2 weeks trying to figure out why I wasn't able to conceive. Didn't help me, but I'm just talking about that. Now, this young lady who thought she couldn't conceive, started the same protocol that I'm going to talk to you guys about that addresses insulin resistance. The first month her periods were normal. Second month the periods were normal. Third month she didn't have a period. Now she's upset. Okay. Like, I thought this was working for me. What happened? Well, it was working for her. She got pregnant, and she now has a baby that's about 1.5 years old. There's another one who, similar story. So getting the insulin under control can positively impact that PCOS, allow your fertility to work, because if you're not getting those cues of ovulation, of the all of that happening, your body just is not going to allow you to be pregnant. And we can do another talk someday on how like gestational diabetes and all that links in. By the way, a woman who's insulin resistant who has a baby is more likely to have a baby with weight problems and insulin resistance later on in life. And just a little factor I learned a couple of months ago as I was doing some research. 2 parents with insulin resistance increase the likelihood of having an autistic child. It's very highly linked. So if you want to get your PCOS under control, you got to get your insulin resistance under control. Erectile dysfunctional credentials. Trust me, bro. My credentials are I worked in hormone clinics with doctors. I've had all the tests run. I am not a doctor. I was going to school to become a nurse practitioner and had some tragic things happen in my life. I stopped school because of that. I don't talk about that a lot. And I do research from doctors who know, like Dr. Ben Bickman, Dr. Jason Fung, Dr. Hyman. All of my information comes from those guys. When we talk about neurological issues, there's a lot that comes from, I just lost his name now. But look, I've always said I'm just a woman who does the research to figure out why I got better. And credentials are that when there are women having these problems and they're getting better by addressing their insulin resistance, that's the credentials I need. Because I was told that nothing would change that. I was told that there was nothing that could ever be done to help my health, that I was just always going to be sick and I was always going to have all these problems and there was nothing I could do to be helped. My credentials are that I overcame it even when the doctors told me I couldn't. So there we go. Now, let's get back to the positive stuff with questions people have to ask. I wish I knew this info back then too, Jeep Girl. Right? Okay, so Carrie, thank you for the much love and respect. Apple user. And most importantly, I went through it correct. And doctors have credentials and they're not helping many people because they're not educated about insulin resistance and what's really going on. They're taught the processes of the body and they're taught to give you medications to adjust numbers when they're wrong. But they're not given nutritional information. They have maybe one. So how do we resolve insulin resistance? How about I talk about that, then we're going to come back to erectile dysfunction and how this same thing is affecting men in just a different way. There's a couple of actions that it's affecting men. So what you need to do for insulin resistance. Number one, you guys, all of the information you need is in my profile. Just tap on the link up above. White box will come up. My link tree will come up. And it's if you can't get to the link on my profile, just type in link tree and then type in Coach Misha Fayant. I'm going to show you something really quick. But I do want to show this today because I'm dysfunctional. I am dysfunctional. All right, so let's refresh this. Okay. So this is my landing page. What I want you to see, the system that I'm going to talk about is here. The tea that I'm drinking is here. There's a lot of information, but my website is right here. You can read all about all the stuff that I'm talking about here, but this is the one I'm getting to. This free ebook, these 6 simple steps we're going to go over right now that you don't have to buy a system. If you want help with it and you want to do the same thing that I did to get better, then we're going to look at that system, right? Okay, so 6 simple steps. Number 1, we need to understand that one of the things that's happened to our food is that fiber has been stripped out of our food. Fiber. I'm doing a series of videos on both the yerba mate tea that I drink and fiber so you guys can understand more why it's working. Fiber is key for our gut health, for autoimmune disorders, for so much, and I've covered it a lot. You guys will find videos in the playlists about those. I'm not going to go over all of that now, but fiber is key. So fiber first every time you eat. Why? Fiber is the substance that slows down how that glucose that's converting from the food we eat hits our intestinal tract and gets absorbed into the bloodstream. In the absence of fiber, so fruit juice, vegetable juices, all of that, that glucose is hitting your bloodstream much more quickly than it needs to. But it's not just that. Even in our raw organic foods, there's 50% less of some vitamins and nutrients in it just because of soil depletion. Then we add in how much they've been modified. Yeah, the food industry has stripped out fibers from our organic foods because we want things that are bigger, sweeter, juicier. So they've engineered our food to be what it looks like today. Go do a quick Google search about what our food used to look like. Corn is a grain, not a vegetable. Peaches used to be the size of my AirPods case. Now they're bigger than my fist because fiber was stripped out. Fiber makes things a little bit more crunchy, a little bit more bitter, a little bit more hard to digest because our food was never supposed to go through us as quickly as it does. Now our food is going through quickly and we're continuing to be hungry because it's just passing through our system so fast. You're hungry all the time. Fiber is going to slow that down, but it's not just any kind of fiber. The fiber I use, I'm going to talk about it in a minute. The fiber I use is 7 different types of fiber, soluble and insoluble. I'm working on a video to describe the difference between soluble and insoluble and why that's so important. But it is. It's important because the insoluble fibers don't soak up water. They act kind of like a broom, but they also make a mesh in your system. They're long, strandy fiber like bananas and celery. So when you do celery juice, you've just removed all of that protection. Why does celery have insoluble fiber attached so heavily to it? I would think that if we trust the creator, the being above God, whatever you want to call it, and they put that kind of fiber in celery, why are we stripping it out? There's a reason it's there. There's a reason. So we got to stop all that. Fiber is key. So fiber first before you eat, every time you eat. It's going to be hard to get in the amount of fiber we need. We need 30 to 40 grams of fiber as adults. Most of us are getting 10 to 15. We wonder why we have IBS and Crohn's and gastrointestinal issues and a gut microbiome that's unhealthy. And women are having yeast infections and all these other things going on. And you have psoriasis and skin issues because of inflammation in the gut, because we're not getting in enough fiber because the food industry has changed what we're getting. Woo, I get excited. Fiber first before you eat, every time you eat. It's going to protect you from the delivery of those packages of glucose and energy happening too quickly. The next thing you want to do is prioritize protein. We do not get in enough protein. Most people that I work with, when they break down their daily diet for me, it's like, if they're getting in 30 to 40 grams of protein, they're doing good. What we need, and you can write this down, is we need about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight if you're here in the US. Now, with a pound of body weight is the weight you want to be at. I want to be at about 165 to 170 pounds. So I try to get in 150 to 170 grams of protein a day. Protein is a building block, and you need it for your muscles. What a lot of people don't give credit to is they think of muscle as, the bodybuilder stuff, right? Those muscles that are poking out, all of that. No, your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your intestines, they're all muscles. We need protein to build this up. It is the most satiating of the 3 macros. The 3 macros are protein, fats, and carbohydrates. The one that's going to keep you the fullest, longest is, yes, the brain too, Carrie, is protein. It will spike your insulin because part of it turns into glucose, but only about half as much as a carbohydrate does. So 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight you want to be at. And we're talking about how to overcome insulin resistance to impact PCOS. Okay, so fiber first. About 10 minutes before I eat, I get that fiber in. It's filling up my gut, helping me feel satiated. Then I go in and I put protein in, and then that's helping me feel more satiated, but it's giving me building blocks. It's giving me some glucose, but it's not spiking my insulin. Everything is full of hormones, Apple user. Everything is. And I'm going to talk about the fiber I recommend. It's actually in my profile up here. So now, fiber, protein, right? Then fats. You guys stop thinking that fats are so bad for us. Saturated fats from fruits like avocado, olive, and coconut are actually good for you. Yes, you can overdo any of them. Kokomo. Blended fruit smoothies with avocado, any good for insulin resistance? I'm going to say this. I would not do a fruit smoothie like I would not do a fruit juice. The reasoning is this. With the fruit juice, the fruit smoothie is probably better than the juice because there's at least fiber there. But now you've broken down that fiber. Anytime we're juicing or smoothieing something, we're taking away the ability for our body to produce enzymes that it needs to digest and utilize those nutrients. When you break it down into a smoothie, now you're taking that chewing action that's creating enzymes away, and it's going into your gut, without activating all the stuff that you need to metabolize that food in the first place. Now, with that being said, we don't live in a perfect world, and most of us cannot eat that, all of that. I would not do berries in a smoothie. I do protein in a smoothie once in a while when I'm trying to get my 150 grams of protein in. It's got about 40 grams of protein in it, but I focus on fats. And yes, avocado in my smoothie is one of the base for my smoothies. If you guys want to know what the base is for my smoothies, I'm more than happy, not smoothies, my shakes, my protein shakes that I supplement my protein intake with, I can tell you that. But we need to really get in good, healthy food. Also, you guys, my daughter-in-law, has a she has a bachelor's in a couple of different things. But we were talking the other day, and let's talk about this really quick, because we're talking about how to get better. We do not chew enough. We do not chew enough. So that chewing action that we do helps keep our jaw strong, which is going to help with a number of processes, including the way we breathe, which is going to affect your whole body. When we're drinking everything all the time, we make our mouth muscles weak. So you see problems with people's profiles, with the way their jaw is structured. We need to chew more. So that means eat the apple. That means chew on that steak. That means eat that whole broccoli. Stop smoothieing everything. Yep, and it helps your teeth stay stronger as well. Walnuts, dairy-free yogurt, berries, and cocoa powder. That is a lot of carbohydrates and not enough protein. And we're going to talk about one other thing here in just a second. Okay, so I hope that explains that. Fiber, then protein, then fats. What most people don't know is that you have to have fats to help with that protein that you're getting in. Protein and fats go together. Avocado has some fats, it has some carbohydrates, it has a very small amount of protein, but it has fiber in it. But you need fats with your protein. And if you guys want to know why, put a 1 in the comment and I'll come back and tell you why fats are so important. So yeah. Most of us are eating a little bit wrong because we went by a food pyramid that's now been proven wrong. I've listened to nutritionists talk about how wrong that food pyramid and the food knowledge that we've been given is so wrong. So we're going to change that. This is how we ended up here, and we're going to change that. So Shrika, thank you for the Kokomo for the ones. Okay, so when we're metabolizing protein, part of it goes into those building blocks. Part of it turns into some proteins that get saved for later. Part of it gets pushed out if we're not able to metabolize it. And then part of it goes into glucose. Now, in order for us to metabolize it, we have to have the fats attached. That's what's helping it. Now, those fats are also helping with your body, your liver, pushing bile through your gallbladder so that can metabolize the proteins. Okay. But that's only one step of it. The next step is this. If you cut into a steak or any kind of protein, you see that really thin membrane around the proteins. And I don't have any proof. It just was a thought that went through my head. I thought about cellulite because I'm thinking about those little, the little membrane around the protein. So in our muscle cells, around those muscles, there's this thin membrane. That membrane is made up of fat. When you go low fat and you start to try and pump up the muscle so much, it makes that membrane brittle. And then you start to have problems with things like rhabdomyolysis, where your muscles break through. That membrane that's holding that muscle together, allowing it to function, is made up of fats. We have to have those in there or you're putting your muscles at risk. So make sure you have good fats with your protein. That's only one action. The fats that I talked about are also great for your brain health. They're great for your metabolism. They are great for your gut. Like I just said, when you get those in, those fats are not what's causing fatty liver. That glucose that's breaking down too quickly, especially fructose from smoothies and from fruit juices, are causing that accumulation of liver. You guys go back a couple of days, we talked about this when I talked about the liver. But The dietary fats, they are helping the bile that the gallbladder's been storing come out so that you can metabolize the food you're eating. So it's really important. So fiber first, protein next. Protein is most satiating, only spikes your insulin a little. Fats are the next most satiating, and they don't spike your insulin. Okay. Then what you want to do is limit your carbs. Carbs are being fruits, vegetables, grains, rice, all of your cakes, cookies, candies, all of that stuff. We always think about carbs as potatoes, breads, rice. But what people don't understand is this. If it's not a protein and it's not a fat, then it is a carbohydrate. Okay. Some carbohydrates have protein in them. But think about what you think of as a protein. If it's not a protein, if it's not a fat, it is a carbohydrate. So limit the carbohydrates. I'm not saying don't have them, but we've been living on carbohydrate heavy diet and it's causing this problem. And then you're hungry all the time. So you're eating more and you're snacking and you're doing all of that. So those are the first 4 tips that are in that book. Now, the last 2 tips. You're going to do some intermittent fasting. And that's scary for a lot of people, right? Oh my God, she used the fasting word. Oh hell, she said fasting. It's not that hard. And let's talk about why fasting in just a second. So you want to do some time-based eating. You want to do some intermittent fasting, and I'm going to explain that in a second. The last thing in those tips is you got to move your body. We're not moving enough, and we are not getting the exercise in that we need. Now, 25 to 30% of your energy needs go to your muscles. When they're more active, you're using up more energy. The biggest user of energy is your brain by volume, okay? But your muscles, the more active you get them, then the more they're going to utilize the glucose. The interesting things with muscle is that even in an insulin-resistant body, muscles kind of have a back door. When they're active, there's this little back door that says, insulin, I don't care about your key. I'm going to let some glucose in because I need that. But it has to be active for that to do that. If the muscle's just kind of sitting around doing nothing because we're sitting in chairs all day, that back door never gets open, and then that excess glucose never goes in and our insulin stays high. Okay, so muscles don't always have to have insulin to get the glucose in. They have a magical little back door that can have, but they have to be active. So fiber, protein, fats, limit your carbs, do some intermittent fasting, move your body. Weight-bearing exercise is best. You don't have to be crazy bodybuilder, power lifter kind of person. Just put some weight on your muscles and let them work. Interesting things, you guys. When you lose muscle as you age, it's harder to ever regain that. At a certain point, it's not likely that you're ever going to regain it. I'm lucky I put on a lot of muscle when I was powerlifting, but I haven't been working out, so I got to protect that now by doing some weight-bearing exercise. Dr. Bickman says, whatever exercise you do, just do it to exhaustion. Okay, so if you're using a 5-pound dumbbell, great, and you're doing 30 repetitions of your arm curls, great. Just do it till your muscles are tired. If you want to do a 20 or 25-pound dumbbell, which is still pretty light, if you want to do that, how many ever reps it takes, just do it till your muscles say, I can't anymore. It doesn't have to be heavy, and it's not going to build bulky muscles, but it's going to build healthy muscles. We need to understand with the insulin resistance, our muscles are deprived, and so they're shrinking away. And remember, it's going to be hard to get them back. Way off topic, but when we're losing weight through all of these other methods that people talk about, whether it's those injections or whether it's extreme calorie restriction, most of your weight is lost by muscle loss. Those injections, you're already in a muscle deficient state when you're insulin resistant. Those injections are causing you to lose about 50% of your weight loss. With those comes from the loss of muscle, not just the loss of fat. So be careful with those. Now, why intermittent fasting? Dr. Jason Fung was just talking about that this morning in one of the things I was listening to. He is a big fasting advocate, one of the biggest out there, helping a lot of people get better. Let's go over the timeline. When you eat, it takes about 2 to 4 hours. It takes about 2 hours for that glucose to really get out. If you've had some good fiber, if you've had some whatnot, go on. but it takes about 4 hours for your blood sugars to really normalize after you've eaten. And for those blood sugars to come back down to baseline, um, at that point, your body's starting to say, okay, there's no more sugar out there. But in an insulin resistant body, it's waiting. So insulin is still out there ready because you've been training it that you're going to eat, and you're going to eat simple food that's going to turn into glucose too quickly. And you're going to snack on those walnuts. You're going to snack on the pistachios. You're going to snack on the popcorn. You're going to snack on whatever that you think is healthy, that you're doing good, but you're still snacking. So your body's telling yourself that you need more insulin. So insulin's going to stay high. It takes about 8 hours for insulin to go down after you had your last bite of food, because insulin wants to do its job. And you've trained it that it's got to be out there. So 8 hours before the insulin goes down. Now, there's another hormone called glucagon. Insulin is a hormone that's delivering packages, but it wants to save energy. So when insulin's out, you can't burn fat for fuel. It doesn't want anything to break down. It's trying to save everything. It's trying to make things grow, but everything is getting resistant to it, right? Glucagon is the other side of that scale. Glucagon is what they call catabolic. It wants to eat things up. Glucagon, if you guys can imagine, if our bodies put precedence with glucagon, something that's eating up stuff all the time, we would not live very long. So the body naturally prioritizes protein, something that wants us to grow. That goes first. If the insulin is out, glucagon can't do its job. Insulin goes down at 8 hours. It takes about 2 hours for the body to go, oh, they're not eating. We don't need insulin anymore. Glucagon, it's safe to come out. Glucagon pokes its head out, starts to rise in your body. Still takes a couple hours for everybody else to get the signal. Now, that's 10 hours. At 12 hours, your body's like, ooh, insulin's asleep, glucagon's out, human growth hormone goes up. Ketones start getting kicked out, little messengers that tell your body to burn fat for fuel. Your gut starts to reset. All that negative gut microbiome that was being fed by all that sugar you're eating, that's starting to go away, and the probiotics are starting to be like, oh, we can breathe. We have some room in here. Your gut's resetting. That's happening between hours 12 and 14. And most people are eating before then. So if we push it out to 16 hours, now we're getting a couple of hours of really good benefit from all that stuff that's happening. And then you have your first meal, and your first meal is going to be high in protein, high in fats, limited carbs. You're going to stay fuller. Your insulin's not going to go up as high. And over time, that insulin level is going to trend down, and you're going to become insulin sensitive. But more importantly, you're going to become metabolically flexible, which means your body knows when to use sugar and when to use fat for fuel. Right now, most of us think, our bodies think, that the only fuel it gets to use is sugar, and that's the way we've trained it. Okay. So, all right, let me answer some questions, because I know a lot came in while I was going through all of that. The rice diet, cortisol, but we don't want to spike insulin during workout with cortisol. You guys, yes, there's a misnomer with that, right? So if you're going in doing crazy workouts and you're spiking your cortisol, that's probably not good either. But if you're doing a workout where you're stressing your body, let's think about that, Apple user. Unless you're out working on a farm, or unless you're out doing something that's more physical, and you're sitting in a chair all day, you're causing a problem. High levels of insulin is going to spike your cortisol consistently, and that's why people are having problems with mood, with heart rate, and with weight issues, because our cortisol is constantly elevated just by having high insulin. Start working out. It's going to start leveling out that cortisol, because the insulin is going to come down. The cortisol is also going to learn when to be out and when not to be out. But when you're sitting on your butt, you're causing problems with your whole body. Your muscles are not using insulin. Insulin is causing a rise in your cortisol anyway. So which is better? To be sick and having insulin resistance and have that little bit of cortisol rise that's going on constantly, or to do a workout and briefly have the cortisol rise at an appropriate time that your body needs? The cortisol rise is really just telling your blood to pump. It's really just telling your body to be ready for that stress. And when that stress is over, the cortisol comes back down. That's a normal action. It's not meant to be risen all the time. Insulin resistance is causing that. So I don't know what the comment was. Walter Kempner. No, let me write that one down. You guys, I like Kempner. I like when you give me new information because I will go check it out and then look, I decide what resonates based on what I know. The whole system encompasses the healing of all ailments listed above. Yes. Doesn't protein cause kidney damage over time? So let's talk about kidney function and protein. Yes, when your kidneys are overloaded, they have a problem with protein and they start to dump proteins out into your urine. That's kidneys are having a problem. If you're having kidney problems, you're going to have to do different things with your protein. But understand, we just went over this. When did I go over that? 2-3 days ago. Kidney problems are highly linked to insulin resistance. If you get the insulin under control, those cues in the kidneys that are happening improperly, that are allowing proteins to not be metabolized correctly and end up in the bloodstream too heavily or out in your urine too heavily, causing foamy urine. Not foamy, that's fat. Those proteins dumping out is because of insulin impacting your kidneys. So sugar down, protein up. With kidneys, yes, definitely check with your doctor. But we have a number of stage 3 kidney disease people who've been able to reverse it and have normal kidney function now when they were thinking they were going to have kidney dialysis. So it all comes down to managing the insulin resistance. Okay, so bones are popping. That's a whole other, especially your shoulders and back. With rice and fruits. I will read that. But so I'm not saying don't eat fruits. I'm saying don't juice them and don't smoothie them, and be careful. So what I will tell you is fruits are part glucose and part fructose. The only organ that can really metabolize fructose is your liver. When we look at how many children have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, prediabetes, and diabetes, and the thing that we've changed in their diets is we've added so much fruit juice and fruit in. There's some evidence that way as well. But I will check out Dr. Kempner. No gallbladder, hiatal hernia, weight, all in stomach, any recommendations? We're going to talk about that right now. By the way, Jess, my gallbladder got removed. I have a hiatal hernia. I had eosinophilic esophagitis. My weight was all in my belly. And so I'm just like you, and I've overcome all of that. And I'm going to tell you how. Let me make sure I've answered everything else, and then we're going to get into it. Yeah. So it's all related to insulin resistance, Jess. So those things: fiber first, protein, prioritize protein, get in healthy fats, limit your carbs, do some intermittent fasting. Stop eating all the time and stop snacking all the time. You want at least 4 hours between your meals to allow those blood sugars to come down, which allows the insulin to come down. Then that's it. What I did the medical medium. I did veganism. I did berberine. I did black seed oil. I did these crazy shakes that were green and nasty, and I had vegetables and lemons and ginger and all this stuff all over, and wild blueberries in the freezer. But I had all this stuff all over the counters, and I was going to the store every 3 days, spending a ton of money trying to do these shakes to get myself better. And in the meantime, the doctor had me on more and more medications because I wasn't getting better. Somebody said they had an allergic reaction to metformin. I don't like medications. I don't like medications unless they're absolutely necessary. If it's a metabolic disorder, you're not deficient in a medication. Why are you taking medication to fix it? Why are they giving you a medication to fix something that's a dietary disorder? Good question to ask them. Okay. So what I did, I drink a tea every morning. The tea helps me with mental clarity, energy. It has anti-cancer, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory properties in it. I'm doing a whole series on 13 benefits of this particular tea. This tea is from Argentina, and their athletes use this tea for energy. It can increase sports performance, physical endurance during activity by 10 to 15%, but it helps kick out ketones. It helps me during a fasted state. It doesn't break my fast, but it gives me a ton of energy. You guys wouldn't know it, but 2.5 years ago, I would wake up and an hour later, I'm over on the couch about dead from fatigue from those cortisol levels and my adrenals being all out of whack. So Bella says, we were not born with medication in us. Why is that the first to go to, right? Exactly. It is diet. And the thing is our diet is bound by the food we have available today. We are not the hunter-gatherers and the farmers that we used to be, and it's just not realistic to think we can be. Yeah, and you binge. So you're binging, user, because you're not getting in those proteins first, so you're not being satiated. There's all kinds of cues with leptin and ghrelin that go wrong when you have insulin resistance as well. All right, so tea in the morning, energy, helps me with fat burning, helps me with mental clarity, has gotten my heart rate down from 180 over 150 to 112 over 70. That's the tea I have every morning. I have it twice a day. There's one here that I'll be drinking, sipping on as I do more research this morning when I'm done with the live and calling people. Then what I do is I do fiber. You guys asked about the fiber. It's in the whole system is in my profile link, but this fiber, why? This is not Metamucil, it's not Benefiber. Those are like one type of fiber. This is 7 soluble and insoluble fibers, scientifically studied and developed, not just, oh, we're going to put fiber in a drink and add some things to it and market it as healthy. They actually did science. It has science and a guarantee that says it will reduce your blood glucose, it will reduce your A1C, and it will reduce your lipids in a 90-day period if you use it consistently. And that is helping with your insulin resistance. Okay. So I do this twice a day. By the way, this takes my 15 grams of fibers up to 25 to 30 grams of fibers. Now I'm at the recommended daily dosage for my fiber. My gut's gotten healthier. I used to have uncontrolled IBS. I used to have all kinds of issues going from constipation to diarrhea my whole life. Never knew why. This has helped with that as well, but it's helped get the inflammation down in my gut so I don't get sick like other people get sick because my immune system is stronger because my gut is stronger. So a tea in the morning, a pre-meal drink that I have 10 minutes before I eat anything. Most days it's 2 meals. If I do have 3 meals or if I have something, a treat, I have another packet of this. Yesterday I had 3 because I'm trying to up my protein or my fiber. But this helps you feel full before you even start eating, so you're less likely to overeat. Then you do what I said, focus on protein and fats. Now you're going to feel satiated. This also slows down how quickly that food that you just ate goes into your system, so now you're staying fuller longer. And it's slowing down how those blood sugars are hitting your bloodstream so that you're not having those intense high spikes. This one, not Metamucil, not Benefiber. This one has been scientifically proven to reduce a blood sugar spike by 20% and an insulin spike by 13%. Do 2 packets before a meal. It reduces the blood sugar spike by 28% and an insulin spike by 27%. Combine that with intermittent fasting. Now you're getting your insulin levels under control. That's all I did. It cost me about $5 a day, but I will never go without it again. I will never go back to where I was. You guys, I had a walker, a cane. I had disability plates. My children were worried about me. I could hardly walk. I was in pain all the time. My brain fog was bad. They thought I was getting Alzheimer's. I had vertigo. I had weight that wouldn't come off. I was angry and depressed all the time. I had anxiety issues. I couldn't sleep. I had leg cramps every morning when I woke up. It was a horrible existence. And I don't live like that anymore. And the only thing I changed was understanding the food we eat and adding the system in to help me with the gaps in our nutrition that the industry has manufactured out of our food, modified out of our food, genetically taken out of our food. So that's that. No doctors have helped. Okay, so let's come back up and see what your first comment was. On being put on metformin for PCOS, even though you're not a diabetic. If you have PCOS, you have insulin resistance. So the T is in my profile link. I'll drop it over on Facebook and YouTube again. If you guys, I don't know, I think some people just need to refresh their, get rid of your cookies, refresh your browser. The link works. Once in a while, I hear people say the link doesn't work, but you could go to Linktree, just type in Coach Misha Fayant or Misha Fayant. My Linktree will come up, LINKTREE. That's where you're going to find all the information. And then you can order it. And by the way, you start getting texts from me. You get to communicate with me. When I get off of here, I got to go answer some texts that I sent out yesterday. I spent half my day yesterday on the phone with people, answering questions and helping them through all of this. You get that kind of support. It's not just like, oh, buy the tea, I'll see you later. You're going to get support. Okay. Now, metformin and PCOS, even though you're not a diabetic, I wanted to explain that one. Yeah, and Big Chick, you have 12 of these symptoms. You feel awful. Where do you start? I would start with the system. That's where I started after I felt like I tried everything else. My doctor also put me on metformin. I couldn't tolerate it. I was sicker than I've ever been in my life on metformin. Okay, so insulin resistance, it goes like this. Too much blood sugar from the food we eat all the time, spiking our insulin. When that's chronically spiked, it becomes hyperinsulinemia. Our insulin level is risen all the time. Then when that is chronic, it becomes insulin resistance in your body. When your body starts to become insulin resistant, it's not taking up the cues from insulin to deliver that glucose into the cells. One of the actions is that you start gaining weight because your fat cells are going to take in that excess energy. But your fat cells have a preservation in them as well. So they get to a point where they grow and they're like, oh, this is too much. I can't take any more of that insulin. They either no longer let it in or they just start spilling it back out. Either way, your blood sugars are rising. Now you're diagnosed as pre-diabetic. Now you're diagnosed as diabetic. But the issue that's causing all of these has been there all along. And we do not have currently lab test to test for that because they've always been focused on blood sugars. Just because you haven't been diagnosed with prediabetes or diabetes doesn't mean you aren't having this issue. I went for years, all of these issues, and I kept going in and people were like, you better get your blood sugars checked. Sounds like you're diabetic. My blood sugars were always normal. My A1C was always normal. My lipids were always normal. I'm like, nope, I'm a picture of health. I don't know what's going on. It was insulin resistance the whole time. But your doctor's not going to catch it because they're only looking at those numbers. A lot of doctors are not listening to all of these symptoms and going, hey, there's one thing at the root of all this. They're taking this piece and looking over there. They're taking this piece and they're looking over there. They're taking this piece and they're looking over there. I worked in doctors' offices. I know what they're not wrong. It's what they're trained. So I did, it's in my profile, you guys. It's a tea that I have in the morning. The amount of sucralose in the tea is very small. It does not spike your insulin. Dr. Bickman, who wrote the book Why We Get Sick, helped develop both of these products. And if he's concerned with metabolism, I'm sure he wouldn't be giving you something that spikes your insulin. In fact, what he said is things like the Benefiber and the Metamucil, especially, a lot of times they're putting sugars in there that do spike your insulin. Neither one of these spike my insulin. And so I've been more insulin sensitive. There's a whole other story about ketones and how all of that works in your body that I would love to go into on another morning. This tea does not spike my insulin. The fiber does not spike my insulin. In fact, the fiber, because I talked to Dr. Bickman about it, I did some fasting and I did some testing with the products and I tested my blood sugars and I tested my ketones and all of that. And I said, my ketones, when I drink this, my ketones don't go down. If ketones are going down, that means insulin is going up. And so he was like, no, this doesn't spike your insulin. I said, well, the interesting thing was I did the balance during a fast. It's, I think like on day 3 and 4 and 5 of a 10-day fast, I did the balance just to see what was going to happen. My ketones actually went up. Ketones are present in marked amounts when your insulin is down. If the ketones go down, insulin goes up. If the ketones are going up, the insulin is not. This created an increase in my ketones. And he said it's because this goes into your gut in the act of digesting this fiber. There's short chain fatty acids that are going out, which are causing your body to say, hey, we need more ketones. We need to burn fat for fuel. Either way, neither one of them spiked my insulin when I was doing those ketone tests during fasting to see was it really working or not. Nana Peggy. Yeah, so we talked about this yesterday, Nana Peggy. If you're having Botox injections because you're having bile problems, you're also having probably early stages, and I cannot diagnose. I'm thinking through the steps. You're probably having some early indications that you're headed towards gastroparesis. If those, your stomach, your intestines aren't contracting to move stuff through, which is why bile is going back up, most likely, then that's all cued into insulin resistance as well. Love fruit and vegetables, those are carbs. Okay, so not carbs, those are carbs. So if you're not getting in protein and you're just eating fruits and vegetables, for most of us, our genetics don't love that type of diet. Some of us it does, but not all of us. Your metabolism, yep, yep. Okay. So it's about that time, guys, that I've been on, and I've got to start making some calls. Um, I hadn't decided yesterday. I talked about a few things. One thing I've not really talked about a lot is the skin and how insulin resistance and sugar is affecting your skin and even things like your collagen. Is that what you guys would like me to talk about tomorrow? Or is there something else up here that you guys want to come back and hear about and try and make sense of? I would love to see that video, Kokomo. She says she's a vegetarian, eat high protein, craves 46 to 50 grams. And that would be a great video to see. Let's see. I'm sorry, I missed some of these. Melissa, hi. Real tea. This is real tea. This is yerba mate. So what this tea is it's just packaged like this. Why this tea? I want to address this. It is yerba mate tea, but we fire roast it so that we can get these components that are giving you all the health from the bulk of the tea. And so it's extracted. Then it's concentrated. The chlorogenic acids, which I just did in the bipolar video I did last night, we're talking about the blood-brain barrier a little bit. The chlorogenic acids can get nutrients through the blood-brain barrier that help with mental health. So 375 times more chlorogenic acids in this than a standard baked yerba mate tea, because of the process we put it through. It's still the same thing. We just have concentrated it so you're getting this heavy action of this great neurological effect for us. And so that's the tea. And plus it's taken to a lab in Switzerland that purifies it from molds and toxins like pesticides and whatnot. So now it's a much cleaner tea. And it just gives me a power punch of all of the goodness from the tea. Plus, I don't have to steep anything. I've taken a break from traveling because I traveled so much for the last few years. I wore myself out. But when I'm traveling, it's easy. I put this in my purse. I don't have to worry about bag teas. I don't have to worry about, I walk up to the airport water thing. I fill up my cup. I put the tea in. My tea's ready. I can have it. I don't worry about any of that. I also wouldn't want to steep 30 bags to 375 bags of tea to get the same components as this, but get all the pesticides and toxins. Yeah, so the tea is found in my profile. I dropped the link over here. I'll drop it again. It does a lot of good, you guys. You have hypothyroidism, you take meds, also have diverticulitis, constipation, on statins, 76 years old, not happy with your health. Barbara, I'm going to invite you to try the system. Dr. Bickman and a number of doctors have talked about how statins are actually making the cholesterol worse and they're causing more insulin resistance. So I'm not telling you to get off of them. You do with what your doctor wants, but if you want to get off of them, you got to start changing the insulin resistance. And these two products, that one system, is how I did it. Talking about neuropathy, I would love to talk about neuropathy. Melba, I put a video up on TikTok. It should be on Facebook, and I don't know if it should have hit Facebook and YouTube as well, on bipolar last night and how insulin resistance and the neurological messages that are going through, and blood-brain barrier leakage, all of that, how it's linked to insulin resistance. Okay, Melissa, we'll check it out. Thank you. Now, so I have a question for neurological or neuropathy. Yeah, Ro, I did do the HOMA IR video, and it's in, I did it like 2 or 3 days ago, so it shouldn't be too far down in my timeline, and I'm going to get it in my playlist. So I did the HOMA IR video, and the calculations for how to tell a better calculation for your insulin resistance is there. Today, I'll do a video on the simple calculation you can do with the current labs you have. You see everyone advertising this drink because so many people have used it and it's worked and it's helped their health issues when nothing else did. That's why you're seeing so many of us talk about it. Now you're in that algorithm. Now you're seeing everybody who's talking about it. Androgenic alopecia, is that possible? So mine wasn't that bad, but this whole space of my hair was falling out. My hair was much thinner. 2.5 years ago, I was losing my hair. Thought it was age, whatever. This all grew back in. About a year ago, you could see where I had these like little bang-like looking things. That was this frontal hair starting to grow back in. My mild form of alopecia came back when I addressed the insulin resistance. You want to go over hypothyroidism and how the system works. So we have neuropathy and thyroid. Dermatitis. Okay, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to focus on these three things. If you guys can do this for me, vertigo is something I've gone over. Yes, I had really bad vertigo. It made it so I couldn't drive for a living anymore. And I don't have those vertigo episodes anymore. So insulin resistance is just an energy regulation or an energy uptake problem where you have too much insulin and the cells don't want to take that up. Insulin is a transport for the energy in your body. So we're going to have 3 choices. Skin. So skin is number 1. If you want me to talk about, we're going to give you 3 choices for tomorrow. If you want me to talk about skin and how insulin resistance is affecting your skin health, put a 1 in. If you want me to talk about neuropathy, put a 2 in. And if you want me to talk about thyroid, put a 3 in. And the one that gets the most responses is what we're going to talk about tomorrow. So the fix for hair and all of that is just insulin resistance. Get your insulin resistance under control and your body can work properly. So we have a 1, but we have a couple of 3s. Melba says 1. Okay, so again, okay, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to go over thyroid tomorrow, and then Monday I'll go over skin. You guys, I will not be on Friday morning. My lovely little grandson, who I adore, has an event he's excited about. It's pastries with grandparents, and so I will be at his school, checking out his classroom, reading him stories, and having an amazing time with my family Monday. If I have time during later in the day, I will come live, but I will not be live 8:30 Friday. Tomorrow we're going to go over thyroid, and we'll go back over how to get your insulin under control. We just went over that. If you missed this live, find it on YouTube or Facebook at the same thing. It's called Brilliant Health with Misha. TikTok hasn't let me change that yet. Just look up Misha Fayant, that live on YouTube from yesterday and today, where we go over all the stuff about insulin. We'll be there. But I got to run. I appreciate you all. I love you all. Thank you, Kelly. And so we'll do skin and neuropathy. I'll try to throw in a little bit of neuropathy in there as we go through these, okay? So I won't forget you on the neuropathy. And I'll just try to work that into one of the other lives that I'm going to be doing. Maybe even tomorrow we can get to it. But thyroid tomorrow, possibly neuropathy, skin Monday. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning, okay? Have a great day, everyone.